Now, the first point I'd like to make about billing and collections is, and this may seem obvious, but it is more than about money. It's about relationships. Now, we have to keep money very much in mind, but we must also understand the importance of the relationships and those dynamics, and above all, the exchange between yourself as the solicitor, lawyer, advisor, and the client. So the first thing I'd like you to do, perhaps you'd like to draw it in your mind or on a piece of paper, is to draw 4 quadrants. So make a square, draw a vertical line through the centre, draw a horizontal line through the centre, and you will have 4 smaller boxes. In the top left-hand box, write the word intellectual. In the top right-hand box, write the word emotional. Bottom left-hand box, write the word functional, and in the bottom right-hand, the word financial. Now, these are 4 key areas in practice. And you notice that I've included emotional because emotional brings us the relationship element. And what you will recognise immediately, I'm sure, is that when things go wrong with the intellectual quality of what we deliver as lawyers, then people get emotional. If something goes wrong on the functional side, then people get emotional. And yes, you've guessed it, if you do things wrong or get it wrong on the finance side of things, people will get emotional. Now, that is unlikely to work in your favour. So how then to manage the relationship with the client in the best way possible? But back to the money. The first thing that I like to say to everybody when I'm talking about billing and collections is that fees are oxygen for the business. It's not good enough to be a good lawyer if your business can't breathe, if you can't pay your bills, if you can't pay yourself enough. You'd be running breathless to keep up. So fees are the oxygen of the business, never forget that. Now, the next thing I'd like to say is this, that billing and collections is an age-old problem for lawyers, and there are many and good reasons for this. Some of them not so good, and I'd like to talk about those later on in the course of this programme. However, I would like to get across to you as clearly as I can that our behaviours are underpinned by beliefs and attitudes. We can adapt our behaviours, adapt them so that they become more beneficial to us and more beneficial to those we deal with if we can get at and uncover and address those underlying beliefs and attitudes. So I'm going to be coming back to that theme, and we will be touching on it later on in the programme, as you'll see. Now, everything I'm covering here is covered in the paper that accompanies this programme. So if you're not catching it and completely understanding what I'm getting across to you, then please read the paper. So let's move on then, dealing with the business side, if you like. I want to introduce you to some terms, some of them or all of them you may know already, but let's call it billing speak. Now, the first one is utilisation. Now, utilisation is a word that's commonly used to describe the time that is actually recorded. And I'm talking here, of course, in a time recording paradigm, the one that is most common to the legal profession. And many of you, even if you work on a fixed fee basis, such as in the conveyancing practice, you will still want to make use of a time recording system in order to evaluate whether your levels of charging, whether your levels of performance are up to snuff or not. So utilisation rather sounds like we're being used or being regarded as some sort of machine component, but nevertheless it's the word. So this is when we're undertaking work on behalf of a client that we record the time that we actually spend on that work, and that will ultimately come back to us in the billing guide. And I'm using the term billing guide because it should be familiar to most of you. When I started in the law back in 1979, we had cost clerks and people would literally weigh the file. They would hold the file in their hand, and I got quite good at it, and have a pretty good idea about how much the bill should be based upon the volume of correspondence.